The Ex-Worker.
An audio strike against a monotone world.
A twice-monthly podcast of anarchist ideas and action.
For everyone who dreams of a life off the clock.
Hello, and welcome back to The Ex-Worker. In this episode, we're going to share an audio documentary about the Hambacher Forest occupation in Germany. The interviews you're about to hear were recorded live in the occupied forest and the nearby squatted meadow back in the spring of 2014. We'll return to our usual format with news, event announcements, reviews, listener feedback, and so forth in episode 38 in a couple of weeks. For now, we want to take this full episode to focus on an inspiring example of anti-capitalist and ecological resistance taking place in the Rhineland coal country of Western Germany. So come along with us across the Atlantic, and let's see what we can learn from these woodland squatters who have dared to take on one of the largest polluters in Europe in the full power of the German state.
The Hambacher Forest has been called the last primeval forest in Europe. It has existed continuously for some 12,000 years, the largest forest in the region between the city of Cologne and the Netherlands, although now only a fraction of its original 5,500 hectares remain. Since 1978, energy companies have been devouring it tree by tree in order to mine brown coal to fuel Germany's industrial expansion. The remaining chunk of forest, populated by massive hornbeam and oak trees, along with several rare or endangered species of animals, has been targeted by the European energy giant RWE. The company has begun digging an incomprehensibly huge open-cast mine, displacing entire villages and clear-cutting the last remnants of this once great forest. But in 2012, a coalition of angry locals, environmental activists, anarchists, and squatters began an occupation intended to stop the destruction and protect as much of the remaining forest as possible. Despite extensive surveillance and repression, including multiple waves of evictions, the occupation continues and has catalyzed widespread support around the region and beyond. In these interviews, two occupiers from the camp describe the political context and recent history of the struggle, as well as their personal experiences of the relationships they've built with the land and those struggling to defend it. We go beyond the slogans into the intimate life of the forest and its inhabitants, human and otherwise, and into the day-to-day realities of life under surveillance in a squatted camp. And perhaps most inspiringly, we hear how the necessity to continue resisting goes beyond winning or losing this particular battle. The logic of resistance as a way of life. As you'll hear in the interviews, the effort to defend the Hambacher Forest exists at the intersection of many major themes of anti-capitalist, anti-state, and eco-defense struggles. Like the anti-airport occupation at the ZAD in France, and the No TAV campaign of resistance to a high-speed train line in Italy, this campaign goes far beyond a single issue or the attempt to defend a specific area from destruction. Instead, it marks the convergence of a cross-section of distinct movements seeking pressure points to interrupt global flows of oppressive power. And in these spaces of cross-pollination, we see the emergence of new strategies, tactics, and visions of resistance and liberation. Whether or not you've ever been to Germany or have any particular love for the woods, the Hambacher Forest occupation offers powerful lessons for anyone interested in the struggle for a free world beyond capitalism and authority. This is Clara from The Ex-Worker, and I'm here in the Hambacher Forest in Germany, walking around with two folks from the occupation here. It's springtime, and it's incredibly beautiful. Everything is green, and we can hear birds chirping and animals. We can also hear the sound of the highway in the background. And we're going to talk a little bit today about why folks are occupying this forest and the history of resistance in this area, and what folks can do to show solidarity. So,
this was always the way I was walking when I went to bed. It's a small path and it's going directly to the old occupation. What is evicted now?
And that was just evicted a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, two weeks I think. On the 27th of March. And they also cut the trees instead of just cutting out the tree houses. And that was the most horrible thing for me, to hear the trees falling on the ground. Because many of them were really, really old, like 250 or 300 years old. And, like it was growing for more or less 250 years, and then they cut it off in just 10 minutes, more or less. You cannot really believe that, because you was always touching it with so much love and respect, and like with so soft fingers, you know, because you really love it and you don't want to destroy what you love, and then it's way much harder when they just destroy it with such a unrespectful way.
We're coming to some kind of clearing. I see what is that little tower?
It's a hunter's lodge.
Ah.
But they don't hunt anymore in this part around the meadow because of us. Yeah, yeah, but the meadow and the forest occupation are also like hunting sabotage, indirect and also directly. And that's also one point why I like this way of action, to occupy natural areas, so to say. Yeah, because it's not just one action.
Can you tell us about why people are occupying this forest?
One of the main reason for occupying this forest is basically to make it as hard as possible for the police and for the company RWE to cut down the forest, because what they want to do is to extend the hole, which is actually at this very moment in the process of swallowing the whole forest and also some villages around. And the purpose of this hole is basically only to get brown coal to produce energy, which are among the most dirty means there are to produce energy, because it produces a lot of CO2 and carbon dioxide, and it also produces a lot of toxic dust, which is flying around here, making people sick and destroying the nature. Another big side effect of the brown coal mining here is that a lot of groundwater, or actually all the groundwater, needs to be pumped away, because otherwise it would fill the mine. since they are digging below 400 or even 500 meters deep. And so they pump up all the water, which is drinking water, which is not usable anymore because of this. And also is drying out the landscape.
Here you can see the paths of the animals. We are standing in the front of a field. I don't know. You know how the plant is named? In German, it's Farn.
Yeah,
Ferns?
Ferns?
Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, it is just brown, and you cannot see the young ferns. But you can see a lot of paths of the animals who are walking through the ferns.
What kind of animals live here?
A lot, like I think I don't know all the English. Wild pigs.
Wild pigs
Yeah.
are amongst them. Wild pigs and deer.
Deer is Rehe.
Yeah.
And Dachse auch.
Oh, Dachse. What are those animals with the black and white stripes, but not zebras?
And the long nose, and
Yeah.
hunters really like to hunt them.
Not zebras.
Not no, of course, now you have a zebra in his brain.
There are zebras in the Hambacher Forest. Defend the endangered zebras of Germany.
So these like zebras, only that they are
Not
hunters.
like zebras. They don't.
Only that they are hunters.
They don't like
themselves,
look
and they
like
dig
horses.
holes and they live in holes and
Yes.
yeah.
They are living in They are living in holes, and they are not look like horses. To make this clear.
If you see one, please point it out. I'm fascinated. I don't think we have these zebras that live in holes in the United States, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Great. So who is RWE and what is their role in all of this process?
RWE is in fact one of the 5 biggest energy producing companies in Europe, and they even claim themselves that they are the biggest cause of CO2 pollution, even though they would name it a bit different, but they claim that they emit the most carbon dioxide in Europe, and they're involved in different ways of producing energy but also distributing energy. Their biggest focus is on coal mining and coal power plants, and also nuclear power plants. They are really a really big force in the area because they have been here for such a long time, and they're such a big player, and also they did remove a lot of people from their homes, which is, I think, not the easiest thing a company can do. But what they do is they are splitting the communities by different means, such as finding out who are the leaders by taking secret photographs on parties, or things like this, and then getting into individual negotiations with the people about their houses and their property, so that each one of us has the feeling that he's somehow a winner in this whole negotiation, but can't tell the neighbor because he might have a bit more and doesn't want to cause any jealousy, stuff like that. So yeah, just as one example, and also RWE's the biggest or one of the biggest employers in the area, which in total causes a big feeling of disillusion among the people here and hopelessness, because they feel that they are so dependent on them and also are fighting against such a big enemy. Yeah. But still there are people who are very much outrageous, and also people who somehow found hope in seeing that there are people from other villages or also from cities coming here and occupying and trying different tactics, and that also raised a lot of interest among people, but also a lot of controversy. There are definitely as well people who are hostile towards us as occupiers or squatters.
How did the occupation here begin?
The first occupation started in 2012 on the 14th of April, and it started together with a forest fest where a lot of people came. I think like 300 people from all the villages around, and also some from other cities and villages. And yeah, some people, like 6 or 7 people, just got up the trees and were putting some platforms inside, some hanging platforms. And from that date on, the forest was occupied. Many people show a lot of solidarity. And RWE, the company, also came in the first time and said, yeah, okay, we tolerate you here, and we are very open for communication and for criticizing us, and so on and so on. And yeah, they try to keep their image in being tolerant. We were there for 7 months, and especially in the first time we nearly could do everything what we want. And the first time I wasn't there, but I heard about a person who was just climbing on a digger, and nobody tried to get him down again or something like this. They just observed him that he don't do anything, stuff like this. And then there also happened some direct actions, and especially in October when the cutting season starts, there happened a lot of direct actions to stop the cutting and showing direct resistance. And then in November 2012, on the 13th, they came to evict us, and it were 500 cops for 23 people, I think. And many people locked themselves on, and then there was a big surprise for the police. There was a tunnel, and they, in the first moments, or at the first day, in the first hours, they didn't really believe in it. They thought that we make just funny about them, and in the newspapers it was also written down that maybe we installed a very intelligent language computer who can communicate with them. Yeah, it was quite funny. And then they had to realize that there's a person inside, really. It was a situation which they didn't knew how to handle it, because there wasn't something like this before in Germany. They know the action form of logging on, or of lock-ons,
Yeah.
but they never had something like a person who was in a tunnel under. Yeah, they absolutely didn't know how to handle it.
And is that a tactic that was developed in the UK from the anti-road struggle?
Yeah, definitely. It was like there were a lot of ideas and introductions from the UK, and so the tunnel was dig proper, really proper, and also the special unions from the police said that the tunnel is digged very safe and very professional. Yeah, and at least it took them 4 days to get the person out, and with this it was the longest eviction in Germany till now. Yeah, now we are coming to the first tree. Here I was building my treehouse, and it was an old oak. It was like I think more than 250 years old.
How long did you live there?
I didn't really have the time to live on the platform because there was just a platform, not a house on it. But I spent there 2 nights at least, and I'm really thankful for these 2 nights because it was really very important remembering. Yeah, or it is a very important remembering. Yeah, and directly next to the oak there were standing 2 cherry trees, smaller cherry trees, and they just had the flowers when they evicted. So they also cutted them, and when the flowers were still growing, or like open, you had seen the flowers out of this part. I cannot really describe it, but yeah, you will know what I mean. Yeah. It's now like a hole in the forest. Just.
So now there have been 3 different occupations of the forest that have been evicted, but there's also a protest settlement in a field just on the border of the forest that you are allowed to stay in because you have the permission of the person who owns the land?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was quite a big luck when the person from the tunnel came out, or when they get the person from the tunnel. 2 days later we managed to occupy a meadow close or directly next to the forest, and the person who's owning the meadow is really solidarity with us, and he really spent a lot of energy to let us stay there, because police tried so often to evict us from there with like simple building laws and stuff like this. But because he was always going against that with a lot of letters and writing formulas and what I don't know whatever, he managed to bring it to the next higher court. And so now the higher court have to decide about how to deal with it. So for the first time, the meadow is quite safe, so to say. It doesn't mean that they cannot come there, but they cannot evict us for the first time. Where the platform was? No, it was more on the top. A bit more on top. Like, you know, here, look at this one. Yeah. You remember this one?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. So it was over there.
I can't believe it. It's like a dead person also. It's in a total different state. Somehow you realize it's the same thing, or it's somehow similar, but at the same time it has no similarities. It looks totally different.
Especially because of the broken branches.
So as we were standing out in the meadow earlier today, we saw one of those trucks driving by full of employees of the company that drive around and take pictures of everybody in the occupation. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the kinds of repression and surveillance that are happening both from the police and from the company employees in private security?
Yeah, RWE ordered a private security company, or now there are two, not just one anymore. When the occupation started, first time they had the mission that they don't feel provoked by us at all, and if we don't really do something really hard, so to say, that they should not do anything about us. But then it started slow that they also started to provocate us. It was a little bit. It reminds me on the situation on a schoolyard. Like, I'm stealing your backpack and throwing it to another person, and I always try to get it, but I'm too small. Uh-huh. It was a little bit like this, just not really important stuff, but they sent people in the wrong direction when they were asking them where they have to go to the occupation, for example. And I remember one situation when some people were getting some sand to isolate the hut with the clay, and it was in the dead zone, so we called it the zone between the forest and the hole. And we sometimes went there to get the sand. So there were 3 persons who went there with a wheelbarrow, and on the way back, when they had the full wheelbarrows, 2 security cars came and stand in their way and wait for them. And then they said, there were 3 securities, and then they said, it's our wheelbarrow and we're gonna take it because it's ours and you stole it from us. And so it was a little bit like like a little bit like dancing. Everybody had one person in front of him or her, and the securities throw the sand out of the wheelbarrows, and I took the one wheelbarrow, and then we just wanted to pass, but they still didn't let us go, and started to hit one person who was male associated, and the other both were female associated. So one of the others took a pepper spray and sprayed it into the face of one of the security guys, so the people easily got away. And I think this was the point where the securities also started to be more hostile. Yeah, and more aggressive. From the top of the platform, or from the tree, you had a really beautiful view on all around, and especially this part I liked very much, where the tents are, and when the sun went down, you have a wonderful view on the sun. Sunrise? No, sunrise? Sunset. I always get it wrong.
Mining for brown coal is an incredibly destructive process. Can you describe a little bit about the hole and the machines that are there and what it's doing to the forest?
Yeah, the hole is like 8 to 10 kilometers and 500 meters, 450 meters deep. And when you're at the right point to have a view on it, you can also see 5 power plants around there. And for me, actually, that was one of the reasons, or one of the points where I decided, okay, this is a struggle which I want to fight. People can feel the results in also in the Netherlands and Belgium, and in cities which are quite a bit away from the hole.
I wish there was some way to convey just how fucking horrifying it is, because I think it's one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen in my life, and it's really hard to describe to people who haven't seen it that it's like the size of a city. You know, you could fit a town.
Yeah.
You know, just like, and then it's just like a complete and total wasteland with nothing left alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think it's even something which is even hard to realize when you are actually standing right in front of it, because it just looks so different. It's like standing in front of a screen and you're not really integrating it in your environment, because especially if you come out of this forest and you might still realize, okay, now this is the point where the trees are being cut down, and you see the clear cut, which already looks quite destructive and quite frustrating, or sad, depending on what your general mood is in that moment. Mostly it's also anger, but beyond this, you just have the edge and then nothing, like Mordor or whatever. I always like to compare it with that, because it's really this thing, you see a line, and after this there's just nothing, only soil, and it looks like a huge wound in the ground, but you can't even see the other end because it's so huge. And even the diggers, which are a few 100 meters long and I think almost 100 meter high, they appear just as tiny toys in this hole.
Yeah, I think that is also one detail that you cannot really realize the size, because the diggers and the cars, or especially the digger but there is a machine like a snake. It looks like a snake a bit, because it's more than 100 meters long, and it's going through the whole open cast mine, and they are transporting the coal on it. So it's always working or running to bring the coal to the bunker, and you cannot really think or know what size it has. when you're standing on the edge of the hole, you think it's like that high, like to your breast, or more or less, maybe smaller, maybe a bit higher, but in reality it's you can walk through it when you're standing upright. And also the diggers look quite small. The only point where you can imagine how big it is in reality is when you see the cars or the normal diggers. When they are driving next to them, then you realize, what? It's more huge than you thought about.
Also, there was a very nice action happening when something like a political orchestra came and placed themselves directly at the edge, so to blockade the digger, exactly, in front of the digger. And when the digger came, it had to stop there. But there are also pictures of that which make you realize how big this digging wheel is. It's like a wheel which has a lot of teeth and is constantly one after another digging, each one of them a ton of soil, and a car could fit in it. And seeing this then directly behind the orchestra, was a very nice picture. I've only seen it on pictures, but have you been there? Can you explain a bit more about the situation?
Yeah, it was like we just went there and two people customized themselves in Anzüge.
Suits.
Yeah, suits. And one had a cowboy hat, and the other had a turban. They were looking quite official. The securities were first like, who's there coming? Oh, maybe they are very important. They were a little bit confused. And so we just went there and built everything up. And this time some village police officer already came. And they didn't really knew how to deal with it, because the people just started to play, and then they said to us, we have to go somewhere. And we tried to stay there as long as possible, and at least the digger was standing for 2 hours more or less, and then we just went off when more security and police came.
Shall we walk?
Yeah, I would like to see the rest of the destruction. It's the first time for me now to be here since the last eviction.
You want to go the old way or the new way? Because here was just forest, and we always used that way.
To be honest, it is really hard to recognize, to have the orientation again, because the destruction of the diggers and the bulldozers really made a lot of difference in the whole picture here. They destroyed so much of the small trees and plants.
There's a person.
Oh, but it's somebody else.
Ah, okay.
It's masked.
Yeah. We saw someone walking and weren't sure if maybe it was a security patrol, but they were wearing a camouflage suit and a face mask, so it's a friend.
You also thought that we are, maybe security. There is a tree where I was living for some months in a tree house.
What about the glass windows which they threw down?
They are still there. No, of course not. How can they? Because they left a lot of stuff, like small things, small details, and what does it do?
Can you talk a little bit about how the occupation of this forest connects to other anti-capitalist and environmental movements in Germany and elsewhere in Europe?
I think for me the occupation or the occupations on the one hand are solidarity actions for the people who are affected directly and who have to move, and that they know there are some people who are behind you and who like to support you when you say no completely, you know, and who want to resist, because there are many who don't. I haven't seen that yet. Because there are many people who. I cannot concentrate right now.
Okay.
I'll take this.
This is the stump of one of the trees that had a treehouse that was just cut down, and what does that say?
Somebody put a little piece of wood which appears to be a part of this tree which was cut down and placed it on the stump, and it has something written on it which is, "My name was Testimo. At the 21st of March 2014 I got killed by RWE." And next to it there's a candle and a small piece of glass or a small piece of mirror.
And I can still see some ropes up in the trees that are severed but still attached high up.
Yeah, it was the walkways to the other treehouse, to the treehouse what didn't what was not finished. Yeah, and this tree, and the second one. I was talking with the one police climber for a while, and he was saying stuff like, "Yeah, I really respect what you are doing, and I also don't like what they are doing," and asked also some questions, but less like taking informations, more like having this small talk. Yeah, for me he seems like being like okay, but just loyal to his job, of course, like they all are. And the same argument like all of them are using: I have to do it, it's my job, and I cannot do anything against it, and I have to get some money for my family and stuff like this. Always the same.
And I think at the same time police often, when they get into conversations like that and try to be really understanding, I think often they are just realizing that their job might get a little bit easier if they have a good communication with their victims, let's say.
And I also have had some conversations with some police guys where they couldn't argue anymore when I said them stuff to him because at some points I was really, really angry. Not because of the tree houses, of course, because it's a part of that they evict the tree houses, it's a part of the action, but that they cutted the trees, that was something what makes me really, really angry and really like and close to the point that I cannot control myself anymore, and so I put a lot of anger to them and said everything to them. Yeah.
You're listening to an audio documentary about the struggle to defend the Hambacher Forest in Western Germany, recorded live in the spring of 2014 at the occupation. For a full transcript of the interviews, along with links and references to learn more about the struggle, visit our website at crimethink.com/podcast. You can get the latest updates on the occupation from their website, Hambacher Forest, that's HAMBACHFOREST .blogsport, that's BLOGSPORT.DE. Now, back to the interviews.
Can I ask you again about the connection of this occupation to other anti-capitalist and environmental struggles in Europe?
Mm-hmm. Oh. I think also one important point on this kind of action is that there is a possibility to meet each other and to connect each other and talk about what's going on in the world, and also to learn a lot of stuff in different ways, like theory and practice, what is for me a really important point in political activism. Yeah, for me it was also like a very important point to get here and to spend this 1.5 years here, because I really learned a lot about what I want and what I don't want and who I am. And I think this is also a very important point in political activism, that activists learn about themselves, what is important for them, because then you can get stronger and build a tactic or an idea how you can work or fight against capitalism and all the shit around us, and how you can build a new society or a new construct of living together. So I think this is also one very important point.
Since a few years there's a meeting called, if I would translate it, something like assembly. Whoa. What the fuck? This looks terrible.
Yeah, and I still didn't really figure it out if this was the tree where the treehouse was on, or this one.
This was
or
Little
this
Bilston.
One. Little Bilston was
Yeah.
this?
Wow. But anyway, there are serious attempts, or people are trying to connect the different struggles against useless, huge projects, such as the No Tough movement against the train railway from France to Torino in Italy, or Stuttgart 21, the new train station in Stuttgart in South Germany, or Lasat, the struggle against the big airport, and also others like gold mining in Rocher, Montana, or Greece. and so people, a lot of people know each other and have visited the different places and learned from their tactics, but also learned about differences, because there are a lot of differences. Like, for example, at No Tough there is a big history of partisan anti-fascist struggle in or before World War II, I think, and in World War II. Yeah, the situation is very different at each places, but people also realize that they have a lot in common and have a lot to learn. And I actually hope very much that also these big meetings, which take place on a regular basis now, will bring people more together, and also people who are not involved in like anarchist militant struggles or such, so that they get some sort of inspiration if they see how the people in at No Tough, for example, react to the threat of this big project, or how people in Bretagne at Lazat were somehow getting closer and closer together with the squatters, and somehow adapting some of their tactics, and like using their tractors, for example, to build huge barricades and such like things.
These two were the trees where the first tree houses were on. So here the occupation started. And the first time I was living on this tree.
And this was cut down in the fall of 2012?
No, this one, these trees are from the third occupation and eviction.
Yeah, okay.
And here was the beginning of the third occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And these trees were actually closely connected. You could only climb on the one tree, and then you had to get to the other tree, and on both trees there were two platforms. Mm-hmm. So in total it was a connection of 4 tree houses.
Mm-hmm. There are severed limbs and branches lying all over the ground from the remains of the tree that hosted this platform, but you can still see the knots of the rope that held up the platforms, which are still solid, still tightly tied around the different forks of the branch, holding together the carved limbs of other fallen trees that help to support the structure. And it seems like these bonds, these connections of resistance, are holding strong, even when repression is weighing down on people, driving people crazy, even when more and more of the forest is being destroyed every day. That these bonds of action, of solidarity, these relationships are sustaining through struggles connecting across the continent to different kinds of projects, different kinds of infrastructures and destruction that is being resisted. And I don't know if hope is the right word. I don't know if we can talk about the occupiers here being hopeful, but we can talk about these bonds, these strong connections of resistance being forged that I think are laying the foundation for the resistance of the future and alternatives to the misery around us.
Let me see one ant palace.
what?
The ants.
Oh yeah.
Because there's one close here. Yeah. My tree house was named Ant Palace.
Oh.
But there's a bigger one.
So what are these mounds called?
I'm not really or we both are not really sure about the English word for that. Or I thought that there's maybe like ant palace, but maybe it's just a word what I just erfunden habe.
I don't know the word for it. It's ants.
In any case, it's a massive anthill.
Come on.
Right.
You won the quiz. Wow, look at here. They have some. They kidnapped a beetle. I think it's already dead. I never had trouble with them actually, because on the tree where I was building my treehouse, there were a lot of them. But not up there, but down there were a lot of them. But I never had like that they were biting me or stuff like this.
It's really difficult to hear them now because the birds are just shouting too loud.
But if you get close enough, you can actually hear the sound of the ants moving around.
And if you're quiet enough.
Try it.
What if I put this up? Does it make a difference?
I put it as loud as it can go.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, try that.
Tap into the phones of the ants.
I think now you have some visitors.
Are there any more crawling on me?
No. There's a road where they normally and also during the eviction came from, going to the street. I saw this road before they started to use it. And yeah, of course, now it looks totally different. This is the way to the main road. They totally destroyed the ground. And before they they could evict us, they had to ground it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. They put a lot of sand on it and came with this huge this machine what has this huge roll like for making the pizza, for example.
Yeah, what is that called? A steamroller or something?
Could be.
Yeah.
I don't know the English word. And, yeah, they had to make it like flat, that the machines can go in.
I think we should start to walk back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that okay.
We are already on the
So that sound in the background is military planes, or
they have like learning lessons here, or like yeah, how to say it?
training?
Yeah, training. Yeah. There are two big weapons factories. It's ThyssenKrupp and Rheinmetall, and they have their main factories here in the Rhineland, and they get a lot of the energy from the whole.
Yeah, but I mean, there's this one factory which is directly connected to the power plants. It's directly situated next to one of the power plants of RWE, which is run by brown coal.
So it seems like this forest occupation and this energy company struggle ties together anti-militarist campaigns and anti-nuclear campaigns, environmental defense, anti-infrastructure. So many different social movements are coming together in this particular space.
Also, one of the reasons why I stuck here is because for me it's like having all the fights and struggles together in one, more or less. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think this struggle is so important here.
There used to be barricades on this road?
Yeah, but they always evict them. And then there come some new ones, and then they evict them again. Yeah.
These are cherry trees? Oh, no, here. So the cherry trees are just in bloom now, pretty recently, I guess. And those are pines?
Yeah, I think it's pine. But I'm not really sure. Fichte?
Do either of you want to say anything about how you got involved personally, or like what in your own life led you to become involved in the occupation?
I think how I came here exactly is there's not so much special about it. I just heard about it because of friends of mine who got stuck here and visited them and got stuck here as well. But before that, I guess I was basically searching for ways to have an amount of contradiction in my life which I can somehow stand and which is not tearing me apart. And so also living in a somehow closer connection with nature was a quite important thing as well. And but also to live a life where I don't have to choose each day between what's my personal stuff and what's political, but to live in a framework which is political in itself and also is always connected to my own needs.
Before I came here, I didn't really had anything to do with energy struggles or climate change or brown coal or stuff like this, and I also was not really that interested in it, and I was more involved in animal rights and animal liberation struggles, but I was fighting for that in the city, so it's also not that easy. I came here because a friend of mine was living here and said, hey, you have to come here, it's really, really nice. And I said, okay, for at least 3 days I will come here. And at this time I was in a really desperate mood since a half year or something like this, because I always tried to to fight somehow or find a way how I can find, and also have the feeling that it is successful somehow. And then I came here, and it was really like a revolution in myself. And I felt quite fast that this is a place where I can do what I have the feeling is good and right somehow, and that I can be useful here, because it depends on every single person and on his or her character. Now I'm here since 1.5 years, and also stuck here like some other people.
Los, verpisst euch, ihr Bagger, im Wald wird gelebt, im Wald wird gelebt, im Wald wird gelebt. Los, verpisst euch, ihr Bagger, im Wald wird gelebt, ja im Wald da wird gelebt. Los, verpisst euch, ihr Bagger, im Wald wird gelebt, im Wald wird gelebt, im Wald wird gelebt. Los, verpisst euch, ihr Bagger, im Wald wird gelebt, ja im Wald da wird gelebt.
Yeah. So we're just coming out of the forest now and back onto the meadow where the occupation camp exists. Can you tell us about some of the stuff that we're seeing?
So on my right hand there is a kitchen and a fire space, and also a space where we store the wood. And on my left hand there is a monkey's tent where many people who used to live on the forest occupation have their stuff in, and next to it there is a material tent.
Yeah, in fact the meadow has a very long and thin shape, and as we're going further we see the workshop kind of hut, something between a hut and a self-made tent, and we see our office, Bauwagen, like what is Bauwagen in English? I don't know.
Caravan.
Yeah, something like a caravan with office stuff.
And we just passed the fire pit, the main fire pit, and now the around where people can sit, and some tables.
There's probably about 15 bicycles here.
More or less. And only 3 or 4 of them are working.
That's embarrassing.
Maybe there are some people who really like to repair bikes, so they should come here.
Coming back to the point how you can show solidarity, come here and fix bikes all day long.
On the right hand there is a Technic Caravan. We got it donated by some supporters. We have 2 solar panels and some car batteries, which we always load on the solar panels, so we have enough energy to load to charge the mobile phones and the computer and stuff like this.
And for other stuff where we need power for, we charge car batteries, and so it's transportable. But all of the power we got here are these 2 solar panels, and it works quite well. Yeah, actually, we never have any shortage problems.
I just
Rarely.
said once, but it's not often.
Yeah.
We also have a sound system which works with the car batteries.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
So you can have techno parties late at night?
Not really techno parties, more cross parties.
Of course.
I think it nearly never happened that any techno played here.
Oh, I think it happened when
today.
you were gone.
Today. Yeah, right hand there's the prototype of somebody's mobile bike kitchen.
A pancake house.
Somebody said it's, or somebody gave it the name Pancake House, and the.
How did it get that name?
because the person who is building it really likes to make pancakes and really often do it in different ways. Yeah, but I think he wants to give it the name ACAB.
Fair enough.
That it have the license plate ACAB. All cookers are beautiful or something like that.
Yeah, it's anarchist, cook, and bicycle kitchen.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. So it's a bike which looks like a hut for 10 people.
Like a fighting ship. Like a pirate ship.
It's really hard to imagine, I think, if you don't see it.
Yeah.
About how many people are living here on the meadow right now?
It's always hard to say because every day there's somebody gone or 2 people came or stuff like this. But right now there are always around between 10 and 20 people here. Yeah, more or less. In winter time it was sometimes like 5 people, up to 10.
But mostly more, I think.
Yeah.
It was mostly around 10, 15 people.
Yeah, that's true.
And at the moment it's, right now, today it's nearly 30, I think.
Yeah.
By the way, on the left hand we have a hut that's actually the only really closed wooden building which we have here, and in front of it there's a brand new clay oven which has only been tested once and it didn't work, but it has been improved since, and hopefully it will work tomorrow. But I'm quite optimistic because I'm quite optimistic.
And I'm glad to see that black flag with the circle A flying on the top of the house there.
Yeah, we rescued it from the evicted place. It was such a nice moment when the person just found the flag under all the wood and stuff like this.
Are most of the folks participating in the occupation anarchists?
My feeling is that most of them are anarchists, but I am also quite glad that we don't so much categorize us as that. I mean, there are certainly some people who are pretty clear about it, but also others who don't say it like that, but relate a lot to anarchist ideals. And yeah.
So your relationships with the supporters in the neighborhood are mostly pretty positive?
Yeah. I think most of them don't really have a problem because they feel that we are quite nice people, and there are some who really like fell in love with us and really say it like more or less like this, that they totally like us and so on. And there are some who just seem to be solidarity with us, and I think people who don't like the anarchy sign, they won't come here anyway, so I think we don't really meet those people. Oh, nice. There are 2 people who put the tent up, and they were here last weekend, I think, the first time. They're from the close village, and I'm really glad about that they put up a tent here. And it seems like they want to stay here for some days.
Cool.
Really nice, yeah.
It sounds like you have quite a bit of support from the local area, and I guess from other parts of Germany too, in terms of donating things to the struggle and other kinds of support.
Yeah, definitely there is support. I mean, you cannot really say if it's much or not, because it always could be more.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of support, and all these caravans, like this one, and also one what you cannot see right now.
Okay.
They also are donated. I think there are just 2 private, so to say, caravans, like caravans we brought here.
Yeah.
I think if there wouldn't be this support and this solidarity, we couldn't stay here. So. Yeah, we have a small garden here. It grows since the last year, and last year we already got harvested some vegetables. Thank you very much. Sorry. Yeah, and right now we have every morning again at 9 o'clock a to-do meeting. There never was really an agreement to have regular plenaries, and so some people were desperate about that, and some people were quite happy about that. But I think with the 9 o'clock to-do meeting, there are many people who were really happy about having a time where we can talk about what have to be done. So.
Yeah, and there are also some tents standing around here where people are living in, or visitors who are coming for maybe just a week or so are living in. I don't know whether we need to introduce the big trash hill.
We can leave the big trash hill out.
Standing right in front of the whole meadow anyway, as a very prominent place. Do you say that in English? A very prominent place?
Yeah. It's when we first drove up, I actually thought that it was a barricade.
Yeah, sometimes it's used as a barricade.
Yeah, okay.
We don't produce trash, we only build barricades.
Tut sich nur nicht wehren, Clara, auf zum Kampf macht Rheinbraun-Damm, es ist doch gar nicht schwer, werdet bald Besetzer.
The last question I want to make sure to ask is, what can folks who are listening to this do to show solidarity with the occupation here and with stopping the destruction of the Hambacher Forest?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of ways, like making solidarity actions, like demonstrations, also spontaneously, making information events, for example, or just drawing a banner and put it out where many people can see it, for example, or just printing some flyers, or just writing an email like I heard about that and I'm really solidarity with you, or
showing the movie in the local cinema. There's a new movie out about the Hambacher Forest, and it's around 40 minutes long and shows quite a little bit of how life is here and how life was in the last forest occupation, and a little bit of the background. And it's possible to download quite soon from the homepage Hambacher Forest or hambacherforest.blogspot.de. Fly attack. Solidarity actions. The greatest of solidarity action would be to come here and get involved, create new places. I think that's a very important thing to do, to decentralize the whole struggle and squat another part of the forest, making a new collective there, squat houses. There's so many houses empty here because of the forestry settlement. And all of the houses, there's no research to be done about who's the owner. It's all owned by RWE, which is empty. And it will definitely be the right place. Oh yeah, and tell your friends about this place. It's also, I think, a thing which is not to be underestimated.
Maybe one of the most important things you can do.
Ja, im Hambacher Forest, da gibt es viele Zecken und der Weg soll an den Zecken dort verrecken. Ihr wisst im Boreolose oder Sabotage, die Zecken sind dort eine ganz besondere Plage und die Teufelsfirma rächt sich nur, wenn wir so schnell agieren. Sonst werden wir den Kampf gegen die Chaoten noch verlieren. Doch wir machen weiter, lassen uns nicht massakrieren. Gegen die Räumung werden wir die Straßen verbarrikadieren. Und wenn sie dann noch immer nicht kapieren, ihr kriegt uns hier nicht weg, ihr kriegt uns hier nicht weg. Und mit den Bullen im Ball aufmarschieren, bleibt uns nichts anderes übrig, als sie zu blockieren und ihre Kahn voll zu schmieren, die Maschinen sabotieren. Ihr kriegt uns hier nicht weg, ihr kriegt uns hier nicht weg. Die Bombers und die Buggies kriegt ihr hier nicht weg. RWE in den Dreck.
So far, RWE has destroyed quite a lot of the forest, though there is still the woods that we're looking at now. What do you think will happen with this struggle? Do you think any of the forest will be defended? What do you think will come of this occupation?
I think it's really not possible to say or to answer. And everybody is different, optimistic or not optimistic. When the forest was complete, it was around 6,000 hectares, and now it's less than 800 hectares. So, the part from the forest what still stands is more like quite young forest. Of course, the ground is quite old, but from the ground structure you can say that the forest is more or less around 12,000 years old, and it was one of the oldest and biggest connected forests in Europe, and especially in Germany. Yeah, you cannot really say if the forest will stay or if part of the forest will stay. I think it will depend on what we do, and it will depend on the solidarity which people will show, because solidarity, I think, is one of the biggest weapons we have, because it keeps the resistance alive. And the other big weapon we have, I think, is information, to give the information to the people all around the world, and that is happening a lot, and I'm really happy about that. I think there are some chances, because or at least there was a decision directly after the eviction. There came the news that RWE will not dig a part of another open cast mine, what is also in this area. So at least one village will stay, and I think that was something for a lot of people which they didn't expect, and what maybe gives some of them hope, and also some strange or some energy to take part in the struggle.
I think there are some chances to keep a rest of the forest and to make this whole insanity stop. But I also think that it really depends on a lot of different things. and I don't believe that occupations and direct actions on a scale which is in sight at the moment can stop the whole thing, not alone. But I do think that it's a very important part, but it would need a lot more. It would need a lot more of the people who are somehow involved in the struggle, and and the people who are confronted by the consequences themselves. Yeah, they have to see what means they can establish in taking action, and to connect these different actions where it's possible and where it's useful. I think that's a very important part. Yeah, so it really depends on how we get different tactics together where it's useful, and accept and tolerate different tactics. I believe there is a slight chance, but I wouldn't count on it. And that's also because I don't think that this is the most important question for me to be here. Because however it ends, and at some point it will end, at least in 2100, if it goes the way RWE wants it, all this will be a huge lake, a huge artificial lake, flooded by a branch of the Rhine, which is another insane project. Or if it ends a little bit more our way, it will probably be a smaller lake and a bit of forest left. It's by no means a big victory. That's not possible. Not with these measurements. But however it ends, I think it would be important what experience people made and what the feelings are which are people left with afterwards. If they collected a lot of anger which they can use for a fight against the whole system, whether they understood a bit more and that didn't left them only frustrated and didn't leave them stagnant. And also the human connections. I mean, the struggle is not mainly about making friends, but it would be about nothing if this wouldn't be a part of it. And so I definitely hope that there are strong connections being left at the end, and people who trust themselves and have some hope because they share experiences of what is possible.
In the years since these interviews were conducted, RWE has continued to decimate the remaining forest, slowed but not stopped by the resistance. The occupiers continue to use every tool they can to interrupt the destruction, disrupt the company's operations, and spread information about the struggle. Just days before this episode was released, a massive barricade that was home to several occupiers was evicted by a combined force of around 100 police and RWE security. The barricade had existed primarily to protect the tree houses in other squatted parts of the forest from evictions. We wrote back to some of the occupiers we spoke with last spring, asking what has happened since we visited. Here was the reply we received.
A few weeks after the interviews, we reoccupied the forest in at least 3 different places, and several trees at each. Meanwhile, the occupation spread a bit, until there were at least 7 fully grown tree houses, plus a few platforms. Last winter, we tried to disturb and delay the cutting as much as possible, with several lockdown actions stopping the cutting machines and 2 tree occupations directly in front of the mine. In order to go on with the cutting, they had to evict these, which led to clashes with the private security companies hired by RWE. People on both sides were injured. Also, 2 comrades were arrested and held in custody for a whole month for violence against the security people. A huge flood of letters from all over the world kept them going until both were released. The evidence provided by the security and police was so poor that they couldn't hold them any longer. After another escalation, some of the security employees quit their job or expressed their solidarity with the struggle. They work under really poor conditions, and a lot of them without a legal contract. Tactically, the occupiers increasingly make use of living barricades. When the time comes, people lock themselves onto something inside or on top to delay police from coming into the forest. But those barricades face attacks by police and the security more often. Meanwhile, there is a court battle going on concerning the legal status of the camp on the meadow. The authorities want to evict it, arguing that we don't have permission to erect buildings, but the owner, who is an enemy of RWE himself, goes to court against it, arguing that this should be under protection of the Constitution as a long-term demonstration. Also, several small-scale blockades of the brown coal railways and the digger occurred, as well as acts of sabotage on the railways and on RWE machinery.
We've also heard about monthly public walks led by occupiers around the forest, which continue to grow, with around 120 people taking part each time. Also, a book about the squatting has been written and is scheduled to be released in July. An English translation may be in the works, our sources tell us, but it will probably take a while. We also wanted to know about events coming up where interested supporters can plug in. And it sounds like it's going to be a very active summer at the occupation. Here are some of the upcoming actions they mentioned.
This summer, from the 20th through the 26th of July, there will be a culturally focused camp on the meadow called Kukuk, with art stuff and music and so on. In addition to the action-focused skill-sharing camps that happen twice a year, during the spring and the autumn on the meadow. Also, there's going to be another climate camp from August 7th through 17th at a neighboring coal mine, as well as a mass action of civil disobedience involving the blockade of a digger. This event, called Ende Gelände, August 14th through 16th, is prepared by a large alliance of an anti-coal network, local initiatives and political groups, as well as leftist parties and environmental NGOs like Greenpeace, unfortunately. It has a non-escalative action consensus. Of course, not everyone agrees with that, and we are excited to see what else will happen around the state that the police and RWE can't predict. A few days later, on August 19th through 24th, an action orchestra called Lebenslaute will play a concert in front of a huge digger, forcing it to stop. The action is called Andante an der Kante, which means Andante at the edge. Everyone who sings or plays an instrument is invited to join the rehearsals and be part of the action.
And finally, we asked what kinds of support the occupation needs. Here's what they had to say.
How can people support us? Personally, I think what's most helpful is to come here, alone or with small groups, to take actions or establish new squats in the nearby villages. Also, spread the word about all this. Make screenings of our film and other smaller videos. Donations for our anti-repression structure are also welcome, since there are always costs for court cases, etc.
We'd also like to add that RWE has subsidiaries active right here in the USA, including a wood pellet production plant in southern Georgia, a 50% stake in the Texas-based company Accelerate Energy, and an energy trading company based in New York City. We encourage any listeners who live near those areas to strategize solidarity actions that could bring the struggle to defend the Hambacher Forest across the Atlantic.
You can stay up to date on the latest developments at the Hambacher Forest occupation through its website, hambachforest.blogsport.de. We've posted several links on our website, crimethink.com/podcast, with more information about the struggle, upcoming events, the music you heard, and more.
If these interviews moved you, I want to urge you to see what's happening in the Rhineland coal country not as some exotic, far-off culture of resistance remote from your daily reality. Of course, we encourage you to show whatever solidarity you can for the specific struggle in the Hambacher Forest. But even more importantly, take a look around you, wherever you are, and let that inspiration motivate your resistance to the destructive workings of capitalism in the place where you live. To change everything, start anywhere. We can never be sure where the next front of beautiful struggle against authority will open up. It just might be that the development threatening the woods you love, or the infrastructure project displacing you and your neighbors, could be a flashpoint to open up unimagined possibilities for life beyond the misery of capitalism and the repression of the state. Let struggles like the one profiled here exist not on a pedestal far beyond our ordinary lives, but as provocations to remind us that resistance is possible everywhere. Let the spirit of the Hambacher Forest bloom and proliferate, a spark to ignite defiant hearts across the world. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Solidarity, I think, is one of the biggest weapons we have.